Hi everyone, it's Professor Mackey. I just wanted to walk you through this student sample essay. It shows an excellent example of an academic argument essay. So you'll notice the MLA format for the heading, and just a reminder, you want to, for MLA, it's the day, the month, and then the year. Your thesis is going to be reflected in your title. So in the last paper, you may have had a question for your informative paper as the title. For this paper, you're going to it should be a reflection of your thesis. So we can tell what the essay is about by the title, Just Say No to Ineffective Drug Treatment Programs. I do want to read the hook because I think it's an especially vivid hook. Remember, there are many different options that you have for hooks. You can talk about a vivid anecdote, which is what this writer does. You can open with a startling statistic, a rhetorical question. So there's many different ways that you can hook your reader. But I thought that this hook was particularly effective, so I do want to read it to you. In a bathroom stall at a highway rest stop stands a teenage girl stuck with a serious dilemma. Her body is covered in sweat. She feels an aching deep down in her bones. She's dope sick and trying to set up her next shot, but can't because she left her bottle of water in the car. If she doesn't act soon, the employees and other women in the restrooms may grow suspicious. Finally, she realizes she has no choice. She needs to soothe her pain, so she bends over, plunges her needle into the toilet, and sucks up what she needs for her shot. Okay, so that hook goes on for a little longer than you may want to go on for yours, but it does really pull you in because it puts you in the moment during this vivid anecdote. And then the writer goes into the background. So this story is extremely disturbing, but it's only a glimpse of the extremes that heroin addicts will go to in order to get their next rush. And then for your intro paragraph, you set it up with a hook, you hook your reader, then you go into your background, which this writer does all across the world. Heroin addiction is becoming a larger problem. Unfortunately, this addiction affects all of society. And then she goes into additional background. Remember, in your intro, you don't want to go into too much detail, just a general overview of the issue. You'll go into more detail within your body paragraphs. And then for your introduction, you always want to end with your thesis statement, which is the single sentence summary of what you are going to be arguing. So this student is arguing addiction treatments such as methadone and buprenorphine, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, have low success rates and the potential to be abused, which is why we need to devote more time and attention to addressing heroin addiction with the tools of psychology. So what I used to do when I was writing papers, because I would get off topic pretty easily, I would actually put a post-it note on my computer screen reminding myself of the thesis and making sure that each paragraph really directly relates to the thesis. And one of the reasons that I selected this essay for the student example is because it's so well organized, and it's a complex essay and there's a lot of research in it. So the topic sentences are very important. You know your argument really well, so you don't need the topic sentences, but the topic sentences are important signposts to your readers. So each topic sentence is going to tie back into your thesis statement, and then it's going to focus or zoom in on a particular point that you're going to make within that body paragraph. Within each body paragraph, you're going to need to have a reputable source that has a direct quotation that's supporting your point. So now take a look at this first body paragraph. This student actually opens with the counter argument. The counter argument you do want to include in at least one or two paragraphs, and the counter argument is what people that disagree with your argument would say. So because her argument is controversial, she chose to open up with the counter argument. So I'll read that topic sentence now. While many argue that methadone and buprenorphine reduce the harmful behaviors associated with addiction, in reality, these programs have very low successful completion rates, as most addicts eventually relapse unless the underlying problem of addiction is addressed. So this, the underlying problem of addiction is addressed, is part of the thesis because that has to do with the tools of psychology. So we know that this paragraph is going to focus in on why methadone and buprenorphine are not necessarily the best treatments for addiction. So you'll notice this body paragraph is rather long, and it's fine if you write longer body paragraphs. The one thing to keep in mind, it's also fine if you write shorter body paragraphs, but in academic argumentation, you do want general symmetry within your body paragraphs. So in a piece that you read in a magazine or a novel, this may not be the case, but in academic writing, because each paragraph represents a point, if you have one really long point and one really short point, it definitely trips the reader up and makes them think that one paragraph is not well developed. So you don't want to do that. This writer consistently writes longer body paragraphs because she packs a lot of research within each body paragraph. I want to draw your attention to the frame here. When you set up your direct quotations or your summaries or paraphrases, you want to make sure you open that frame by stating the expertise of the writer. So in the peer-reviewed paper, if you have scholarly or peer-reviewed journals that you're citing, definitely let your readers know, because that is considered the gold standard as far as sources are concerned. So in the peer-reviewed paper, A Risk-Benefit Analysis of Methadone Maintenance Treatment, Dr. James Bell, so the expertise of the source is acknowledged within that frame, and then she goes on to summarize the argument and provide a direct quotation, and then the parenthetical citation comes at the end of the frame. Even if you don't have a direct quotation, you still, if you're summarizing or paraphrasing, you still need to frame that information. In fact, it's even more important that you frame that information, because then the reader will know where your ideas begin and end and where the outside source's ideas begin and end. So you'll see there's a lot of good research within that paragraph. And this next body paragraph, a really great move for a topic sentence. The writer summarizes the main point of the previous paragraph, which again was pretty long, so it's nice to summarize that, and connects it to the main point of this paragraph. So in addition to the high probability of relapse after treatment, that was the point that she just made, methadone maintenance programs simply trade one addiction for another. So now we know this paragraph is going to be all about how methadone is still a drug, and she's going to prove that through her research. And again, everything is well framed here. Just take a look at this frame. Even Dr. James Bell, a prominent academic in the field of addiction. So again, saying the expertise of the source within the frame is a very helpful practice, and you'll notice just the page number in the parenthetical citation. Now, I'm not going to go through each and every paragraph here. Basically want to highlight the point that you are going to open with a topic sentence that connects back to the thesis and signals what the main point of the paragraph is. And then within each body paragraph, you're including well-sourced research, so research from credible sources. Now, I just want to scroll through here. The student does address an ethical argument, an ethical component. If you are addressing an ethical component, it tends to work really well towards the end of the essay. Most students like to address counter arguments somewhere in the middle of the essay. Everybody's argument is different, so there's really no formula for that. It really depends on the flow of your argument and how controversial your argument is. One thing that the student does a lot of things really well, but one thing that I really liked about this essay was this student used what's called a hook and return. So the vivid anecdote that she opened with, towards the end of the essay, most of the time students do this in the conclusion. They hook the reader with an anecdote and then they return to it in the conclusion with a little bit of a twist. She didn't put it quite in the conclusion, but she put it towards the end of her essay, and she revealed that she was actually the person struggling with addiction, which was very, very powerful appeal to pathos. And after all of that great research, so she's appealing to logos and ethos, she appeals to pathos, and that's really effective. So there are rooms for emotional appeals in your essay, definitely, but make sure that the research is really front and center, as that's the most important part of the academic argument. That's why it's an academic argument, not an emotional argument. And then With your Works Cited, a great trick is if you insert the page break using Word. That way you don't have to constantly space down because your Works Cited always begins on the next blank page. It's going to be alphabetized. You want to omit or ignore, rather, any common words such as the, a, or and. So you'll notice the A in Associated Press is what you use to alphabetize. So A, B, C, C. And then you'll notice that the hanging indentations, which just means that the first line is flush left and each successive line is indented, that also makes it easier to alphabetize, by the way. Everything is evenly double spaced. If you do end up using the 8 Key Questions handbook that I provided to you in the course, this is how you cite it. You can check out the student sample paper that I made available to you as a PDF file, and I've also commented in the margins on what I thought the student was doing well. Again, your argument could be very different, but the general principles of how to structure an argument, how to support an argument with research, I think hold true, and this is why this paper is a good example. So happy writing. I hope this helped give you a better idea of what the academic argument should look like.